the first 30 days of going vegan, I don't want you to worry about calories. I don't want you to worry about fats. I don't want you to worry about anything. I want you to have fun. And I talk about it in the book, of which we got it right here. But I tell people, have fun. Just treat it like a new relationship.
Today's guest is a dear friend and a true badass. Dotsie and I spoke to him 3 years ago back on episode 43. And I'm so happy he's on again to talk about his upcoming book and his new documentary. From the rough and tumble streets of Ferguson, Missouri, to the tropical shores of Miami, Florida, vegan badass John Lewis has an inspiring story. Growing up on a diet practically devoid of fresh fruits and vegetables, and weighing in at over 300 pounds when he was just 13, John then immersed himself in basketball and football excellence, changed his diet and his life. Now he's a renowned fitness expert, speaker, author, and the director-producer of the documentary They're Trying to Kill Us. John is also on the front lines of social justice, sharing his passion, infectious energy, and belief in the healing powers of plants to change the world. And so I'm really happy to welcome John Lewis, back to the show. Hi, John.
Hey, how you doing?
Fine.
Hey.
Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
Dotsie's sorry that she can't be here, but I think we'll have a great conversation. She can listen to it later and be envious that she's not with us. So tell us about your new book. It's called Badass Vegan: Fuel Your Body, F the System, and Live Your Life Right. It sounds badass.
That was the goal. It's funny because there are 80 recipes in the book. So a lot of people are like, oh, it's a cookbook. I'm like, actually, the recipes are a bonus. It's more of like the who, what, when, where, and why of veganism, like the different reasons why veganism is so important. And I just go through the whole process of breaking it down to make it easier for the person trying to transition. And then the recipes are just a bonus.
Yeah, you have this 4-part master plan to help people shift into a plant-based diet. Can you give us kind of an overview of what that plan is?
Yeah, so basically it's just looking at like, what's your why? Like, many people go vegan, but then they don't understand that until you find out what your why is, you're always subject to temptation to go back. But if your why is strong enough, then you're able to stick with it and stick it out. We also talk about, your reason as far as like the food, finding the foods you like. A lot of people are like, go vegan, try my stuff. It's like, no, everybody's tongue palate is different. Like, you do have to understand that. And like, it's not a one size fits all. It's finding what you like and then incorporating that into your matrix to make sure that you can transition the best way and having fun with it. I think for some reason there's this negative connotation of like, I'm going vegan, I'm going to miss out on all these things. It's like, no, you're actually going to increase what you eat. You'll be amazed at what you get to eat. And it's just breaking down that ease and getting rid of those stone walls of veganism and how to deal with your family and your friends and your coworkers. You're going to have a little negativity when you go through with it. You're going to have some positivity, but there will be some obstacles to go through with. And this is just all about making it easy for everyone.
That sounds great. I love those 4 very, very important points. And then the other things that you discuss. What was your why to go vegan when you went vegan back in, what was it, 2008?
Yeah, 2008. My why really was to go for health reasons. And then the crazy part was the longer and longer I've been involved in it, the more and more I've seen it's bigger than just health. Whether it's the animals, whether it's the economy, whether it's the ecosystem, whether it's civilization as a whole, there are so many aspects to veganism that are so important. And if people just took a step back, took the emotion out of it and really looked at it, they would see how important it is for basically the survival of the planet as a whole.
Yeah, that I think a lot of people do start with health, and that can get you for so long, but not as powerfully as these bigger things like others, higher powers, really, than just I want to lose 10 pounds or clean out my arteries. Somehow that doesn't seem to stick. The folks that stay with just health don't seem to stick as long.
Well, because once you clean up your health, you're like, "Oh, well, forget it. I'm good now." And so you kind of revert back to your old habits. And when you look at the other reasons for going vegan, those haven't cleared up yet. So you kind of keep going, whether it's, like I said, civil rights. A lot of people don't even understand that, like, a lot of these aspects of what's going on with our civil rights include our health. And if you saw all the things that were being sold to us as food, which is really more lab experiments that other countries don't even allow in their country, then you kind of see like, oh, there are some things that I need to stay vegan for so we can make this right. But if you're just doing it for health and you have good health after 7, 8 months to a year, then you're like, oh, well, I can go back to my old habits. But the other things, they just haven't cleared up yet. So it kind of keeps people on track with that.
We talked a lot about actually your transition in episode 43 when you were first on the show, about how you were inspired by your family's health, and that also was a huge eye-opening experience for you and motivated you, at least in the beginning, to really change your diet and stuff. In the intro, I said that when you were 13, you weighed over 300 pounds. Do you still have that fear that you're going to go back to being overweight or back to old habits or anything? Is there any kind of triggers there?
Not, I wouldn't say back to animals, eating animals, ingesting animals. I don't have that fear, but definitely the fear of like being obese or overweight again. That's always there. Like, it's so funny. I literally, I was talking to a good friend of mine, Tori Washington, which I'm sure a lot of people know in the vegan community too. And it's like, when I look in the mirror, I could be at honestly like 2% body fat and I'll still see the fat kid there. So like body dysmorphia is something that came along with it. It's like a package deal, I guess. So I see that all the time, no matter how well I may have done and gotten in shape, I always feel that way. So yeah, but as far as ingesting animals, texture wise, I can't even see me doing it. And then also knowing what the animals go through, I can't see me doing it. So that, like you said, there's so many other aspects besides health that that can do it. And you do hear a lot of times where people are like, oh, if you only went for health, you'll go back. And it's like, well, let's not deter anybody from starting with health though. Cause I tell people I started with health, but then I learned more as I went on. And you see sometimes, especially online, you'll see people like literally hinder people from doing it because they say, well, I'm going to try this for my health. It's like, no, we'll let them in the door. And then now that they're in the door, now you can show them everything now that they're in the door. But sometimes you just got to kind of ease them into it. Whatever their why is, then they can increase the why.
I think that's really important to allow the two things that you said in terms of your the plan in the book. One was letting people choose their own foods and finding their own foods. So important, because we tend to, and maybe that's what's given us vegans a little bit of a negative reputation of being bombastic. Or it could be, I also want to just concede that I do think it's non-vegans' defensiveness too, because deep down I feel like they do, most people will say factory farming isn't right. And yet they know that whenever they eat meat, they're participating in that. So there's always a little defensiveness on the part of, non-vegans. But also we can also say, oh no, it's easy. Just do it. It's fine. Look, just add more vegetables. And it's so much easier said than done. It could be a real turnoff.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny. I had this discussion with some other friends too. And it's like, we as vegans, as much as I love cauliflower wings, we have to stop saying they taste just like wings. We have to do it. Like, we have to stop because people go in with this expectation that it's going to taste exactly like that. It's like, no, they taste amazing as what they are. And I think that's what we have to start doing. We don't have to necessarily replace everything. It's just like, no, you're going to get something that just tastes amazing the way it is. And I think if we build up this false hope out there, we're going to keep letting people down. Like, let them know that this is amazing over here, the way it is. And I think that way people will be more inclined to just keep
You
doing it.
mentioned that you have a constant fear, that's still with you, the 300-pound kid, and your awareness that
Right.
you could go back to that. What kind of things? Because I know people are going to buy your book because they want to be better, whatever for whatever reason, better for the planet, better
Yeah.
for animals, better for their health, but they want to be better. What
Mhm.
kind of things do you, John Lewis, do every day to help you stay on track for health reasons, to keep your body looking and feeling the way you want? Do you have any kind of either go-to foods or rituals that really are important to you?
I would say one of my biggest rituals that helps me stay on track is not beating myself up, but still holding myself accountable. I think that's a very thin line, and it takes some time to get used to because we've been taught this either or kind of mentality. Like you either got to be tough on yourself or you got to love yourself. And it's like you can actually do both. And it's like I can love myself, but then when I mess up, I can also hold myself accountable and be like, hey, we can't do that anymore, John. You know where that's going to lead. We love ourselves, and if we love ourselves, this is what we have to do. I think a lot of people are scared to talk to themselves and get to know themselves. They say one of the biggest fears is not necessarily being lonely, but being alone. People are scared to be alone with their own thoughts. They're scared to be alone with their own mind. And you have to do that sometimes. You have to really dig deep inside your mind to find the problem because we can't solve a problem if we're not willing to admit there's a problem in the first place. And having that positive talk with ourselves, that's what really helps us to get there.
It's interesting that you say that because we'll talk to ourselves. Like if we had a best friend who messed up, quote unquote, messed up. I don't like even using that word, but if we had a friend who went off track, we go off track sometimes, we would never speak to our friend in the way we speak to
Yeah.
ourselves to encourage them to get back on. So it's interesting, and I
Yeah.
think as someone who also beats herself up and also has a fear from years of eating disorders, has a fear of going back, or gaining weight, that getting out of control, I should say, is probably the overall thing. Um, I feel like I think to myself, if I'm compassionate to myself, that means I'm letting myself off the hook, and I'm going to slide, slide, slide. But you're saying that actually, when we beat ourselves up, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to really look inside and analyze and be mm, figure out really what's going on.
Yeah. Because what happens is that type of think about this abuse is a snowball effect. If an abuser, if they abuse something or someone or whatever it is, and they don't get in trouble for it, then the abuse starts to grow, and it gets worse and worse and worse over time. The same thing happens if we're talking negative to ourselves. If we say something bad to ourselves once and we don't correct it and we don't start to speak to ourselves gently, we start to treat ourselves worse and worse and worse over time. But we don't pay attention to it because we're like, well, it's just me. I'm talking to myself this way, but you actually are setting a tone for the rest of your life. So we have to get out of that. And I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. The way we've been brought up, I was brought up the same way, but you have to step back and then take a look at how to solve this problem gently, but still firmly.
Mm, that's a really good analogy. And on your website, you have a quote, and you say that the body has to be prepared for a healthy lifestyle, but you also have to be mentally prepared. So, can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit about the kind of mindset that one has to have to maintain a healthy life day after day? And I'm talking about the maintenance, not diets, which you and I know are short term, but what kind of mindset do we have to have? And maybe it has to do with what we were just talking about.
Yeah, and it also has to it the mindset has to be set on this is going to require work. But guess what? I'm able to do this work. A lot of times we cut ourselves so short, we think that we're not able to achieve this goal because we saw somebody on a mythical social media platform that did it. And we're like, there's no way they did that. They had to cheat. There's no way. And a lot of times not that they cheated, it's just that we think we would cheat to get there. And that's what happens a lot of times. So we have to get back to the point where, you know what? We live in the microwave age and we want everything overnight. We want to press the button and then it's ready to go. But that's not how it works. We have to be understanding that if we did something 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years maybe the wrong way, it's not going to take a week to clear it up. But if we keep coming back and we keep doing the right thing and we keep positively showing up, even on the bad days, I think a lot of people think that like someone like yourself or me or Dotsie or Tori or whoever it is, they think we are excited about working out every day. And that's not the case. I wish that was the case. I wish I had a magic potion that said every day I wake up, I'm like, let's go torture ourselves. There are some days I don't want to be there, but I also know the goal that I want won't happen if I don't show up. And so if we understand that if we show up and just put the effort in, it's going to happen. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be next week, but it's going to happen.
I think, yes, you're focusing not so much on the outcome, but on the journey helps us stay in the present instead of being impatient and wanting things to happen super fast. Because there's joy in that journey. I mean, there's beauty in eating well and exercising. You feel good that day.
Yeah, we are creatures of habit. And sometimes we forget that the good habits and the bad habits are both addictive. And they both give us that dopamine regardless of which way we're looking at it. So if you keep doing the wrong thing over and over, it's going to feel good. It's going to feel comfortable. If you keep doing the right thing over and over, it's going to feel good too. But you just have to pick which one you want to do.
Oh, I love that because I love habits. I think habits are so important in our life. And the people who are healthy basically have more good habits than bad habits. They don't have 100% necessarily good habits, but they just keep striving, right?
You keep showing up. You keep showing up. And again, you have to be gentle with yourself and also hold yourself accountable that when you do slip up, because you're going to slip up, I don't care who you are. Even the person that you think is the ultimate health nut and never messes up, they just don't post it. It's there. They only post the good stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I always say to folks that it's not about how you getting off track. It's how fast you get back on track. That really is the most important thing because everybody gets off track. Yeah. John, in your book, you talk about stocking your pantry. So let's say there's a reader who wants to switch for vegan. What would you suggest they put in their kitchen first?
It's what I suggest they get rid of first, really. I suggest that you get rid of all the animal products. People don't understand that. It's like you can't want to clean your system out, but you're still keeping the things that are gunking it up. The example I always use is that you can't change the oil in your car, and after you change the filters out, you put the old oil back in. It's not going to work. That's not how you change the oil. So what you're trying to do is change the system, change a way of life, change a way of thinking. You can't keep the old in there. You have to get rid of it. And we have this possessive thing where we don't want to waste not. We don't want to throw away food. It's donate it. Give it to somebody. Give it to a friend or a family member that's not trying to be vegan, but you need to get it out of that house. One of the biggest flaws is that if it comes down to you getting that urge, if it's in your kitchen and you have to decide between the plant-based or the meat-based, those habits will trigger. You might not go to it the first couple times, but if it's sitting there talking to you, eventually that conversation might win. So that's the first thing I do is say, get rid of the animal products. Just get them out of the house. And then I get a lot of people that say, well, I have kids. I'm like, well, until your kids actually buy the groceries, it's up to you who's going to eat what. Because parents are like, well, how do I ask my kid? I'm like, well, you didn't ask your kid if you wanted to give him meat. You just gave it to him. Same thing with the plants. Like, believe me, they're not going to boycott you as a parent because you're trying to keep them healthy. I guarantee that.
That if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. That's what I say, right? It's
Yeah,
like we always, humans think that our future self is going to be stronger and be able to resist, but we have to remember our future self is not that much different from our present
yeah.
self. And so let's make it easy on ourselves. So,
You should have it.
um,
You still have
yeah, yeah, it's back to those habits.
it. Mhm.
Do you, when someone comes to you and says, I want to go vegan, how do you recommend they go to cold tofurkey or they go vegan slowly? Um, what did you do? And what do you find, how do you recommend someone start?
Yeah, I personally went vegetarian first, for about a year and a half, and I honestly feel that was a year and a half of wasted time, to be honest with you. I suggest the cold tofurkey method because especially when you look at whatever your why is for going vegan, not going 100% is putting it off. If you're going vegan for health, then why wouldn't you want to be 100% healthier and be part-time healthy, especially when you have ailments that need to be cleared up? Again, if you're putting the old oil back in the system, it's not going to clean out the system. If you're doing it for animal reasons and the animal lives, going part-time is not really saving any animals. Like, I know people say, oh, you're saving quite a
Mm.
few, but if you look at the bigger scope of it, that one animal that got his throat slit is still looking at you like, well, wow, man, why not me? Like, why didn't you save me? So, and if you're looking at for your community, if you want to help save the community and get rid of the different things that are in the community, not doing it is still prolonging that. So I believe that the cold tofurkey method is the way to do it because it's going to help everyone around the way.
So we're just kind of putting off the inevitable when we go slowly.
Yeah, yeah, and especially if you have health disparities, it's like, why would you put that off? And I understand, you know, the government gets a lot of things wrong, but the one thing they got right was when they called it the FDA, because it's the Food and Drug Administration, and food is a drug. It's the most addictive thing you put in your body over and over and over. So if you think about the addiction side of that, I do understand sometimes it's hard to get rid of that addiction because you've done it for so long. But at the same time, that addiction is not helping you prosper. It's not helping you be around for your family more. It's not helping you to live the long and fruitful life that you're supposed to live. And so why put that off?
I always, for me, I know that for some foods, one is too many and 50 is not enough. So I feel, in other words, I feel deprived no matter what, because I could never eat
Yeah.
enough or whatever. So it's just, I might as well just deprive myself completely and not have to think about it. Just get that food
Yeah.
out and then it's gone and I don't have to negotiate. Because even if I negotiate and say, okay, I can eat the whole pack or the whole this, I'm going to eat it for lunch, I'm still going to want it. I'm still going to
Still.
be feeling, even if, unless I just get it out of my system and take a couple of days to do that. Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want. So you tell us a little bit, you mentioned the 80 recipes in this book. Give us an idea of like a few of them that you might eat in a day. Because I know people look at you and think, I want to be just like John. What does he eat? He's an athlete. How does he get his protein? So can you give us an idea from the book what you might eat?
One of my exciting ones is the badass sweet potato soup. It's very easy, very basic. And a lot of these recipes I made up when I was just dead broke. And I was like, you know what? What do I have in the kitchen? Let's put this together, because I would tell people all the time, I don't care how healthy you tell me something is, I'm about taste at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's got to taste good. So, badass sweet potato soup. The badass beautiful mess is something that I love too, which is basically a bed of quinoa, sweet plantains that have been baked, not fried, grilled onions, guacamole. Um, oh man, it hits every palate on the tongue. It just is so good. And again, it's probably less than $2 to make a whole bowl full for the family. So that's one of my favorite ones. And the uh Caribbean quesadillas, I love those. So one of the tricks is, so anybody that's ever been to Pura Vida, I know you've been there before. So Tara, who is the chef and owner of that, she's like my chef, and so we curated these recipes together.
Oh,
So
wonderful. Well,
the quesadilla,
Pura Vida is a
uh,
restaurant in LA, everybody. So when you go there
yes,
in Hollywood,
yes, and go empty. Don't go with a full tank because you'll be upset. Go empty because you're gonna want to try everything. And yeah, the Caribbean quesadillas are, I mean, ridiculous. It's so good. So those are like three of my favorites, and then some of the smoothies and things like that. So, but I'm one of those people. Like, again, I'm all about flavor, so I wouldn't put anything in the book that's not flavorful or not, you know, gonna wow your tongue palate when you taste it.
do you have any does the book have parameters in terms of food philosophy, or do you have don't worry about the oil, salt, sugar? What are there any parameters in terms of the recipes?
Well, we do talk about the fitness aspect of it too, as far as like if you are looking to lose, gain, or maintain, and that's how you kind of eat. So just to give a premise, I always when I don't work with clients one on one anymore. Just I'm all over the place, so I feel like I'd be not there for a client like I should be. So that's another reason why the book helped out. But I always tell people that the first 30 days of going vegan, I don't want you to worry about calories. I don't want you to worry about fats. I don't want you to worry about anything. I want you to have fun. And I talk about it in the book, of which we got it right here. But I tell people, have fun. Just treat it like a new relationship. In a new relationship, hey, think about it. That new relationship, you are getting it in everywhere. I don't care if it's the airport, the library. Y'all are getting to know each other, and y'all are getting in it, and y'all trying to see what you like and what you dislike. So take those 30 days and do the same exact thing. And then after 30 days, that's when you kind of buckle down. Like, you know what? I'm feeling you, you're feeling me. Let's make this exclusive. And now you know what you like and what you don't like. And so now if you have a goal of if you want to gain, you eat more of what you like. If you have a goal of you want to lose, you eat less of what you like, but you're still eating what you like. And then if you want to maintain, you just keep doing what you've been doing already. So I think that way has helped out of a lot of clients that I've dealt with. And it's helped me out too. When I first went vegan, I wasn't worried about, oh man, let me get this protein. Let me get this, none of that. Those first 30 days, new relationship, have at it.
So, speaking of protein, you know that I'm a really big fan of your BAV protein, especially the strawberry shortcake. You're a business person, you have an MBA, so you've had many businesses, and one of them was this protein. Is it still available? Because oh boy, am I a fan of your strawberry shortcake flavor. Tell me a little bit
In fact,
about that.
I think that's
What?
how we met, actually. I think that's how
Yes,
we met.
yes.
Yeah, I used to carry them around like business cards. I had like packets of protein shake. I'm like, here you go, just take that and enjoy. But
Yeah, let me
we
just
do
say,
have.
I talked about this in our first. I talked about this in our first show, but I just to recap is that you and I met on it was Veg Fest week, and you were speaking, so you were in LA,
Yeah,
and you I was staring at you because you're so handsome. We were at a Real Food Daily, and you
daily.
came
Yep.
over because you're a gentleman, and you introduced yourself because you probably saw me staring, and
Yeah.
you gave me a card and said, "Oh, here, I'll send you some product." And I'm thinking, "Yeah, right. That's what everybody says." And lo and behold, a basket of your amazing protein powders came in the mail. I was very impressed that you followed through and just fell in love with your shakes.
Thank you. So yes, I remember that Real Food Daily. In fact, Tara was at Real Food Daily still at that time. Um, and so we do have Live Vegan Smart still. We have Vegan Smart, which you can find at like Whole Foods. But our newest product, which is the Naturade shake, we have that in Costco now. And to be honest, that's like our best tasting one. I'm still working on a BAV line, which will probably have about 3 flavors aligned with that. Most likely bring back the strawberry shortcake as well. But right now, the Naturade has been doing so well at Costco because it was tough to get in Costco, so we finally got it in there. So that's a big thing for us, and we're going to be working on some more amazing flavors along with that. And I got you as soon as we get the new flavors.
Oh, thank you. So tell me what folks should look for. Now I know why I haven't seen it. It's because I'm not a member of Costco, but now I think I'm going to be. Tell me, is it Naturade, and then it's the protein powder, their only protein powder, or how does it get sold? How do they know it's
Yeah, so
yours?
Naturade. So my two business partners with Naturade, it actually was established in the 1940s, and then my two business partners came in and acquired it around 12 to 13 years ago, and then I came on board because they didn't have any vegan formulations. So I helped them formulate the vegan aspects, and then I stayed on board as a partner. And now we've actually been phasing out all of the non-vegan products, and we're almost down to I think like 2 products when she started off with like 30 something. So been phasing it out. And I know a lot of people like, well, you're vegan, just get rid of all of them. Like, yeah, but people got salaries and you still got to pay the bills. So we got rid of, and I never got paid from that aspect. I was only dealing with the vegan part. So, but I got them to phase that all out. And so now the Naturade, we have the main flavor, which is creamy vanilla, and it's amazing. And then the Vegan Smart, we still have the regular flavors: vanilla, chocolate, chai, um, and I believe what was it, and wild berry. And then we're gonna be working on some more for that. But also too, the good thing about Costco, if you don't have a Costco membership, you can still order online, and you don't have to have a membership.
Oh, I didn't know
So for
that.
anybody watching, yeah, anybody watching, you can do that and order it. And because we're not in all 50 states yet, so if it's not in your state, you can order online and it can be shipped to you.
Fantastic. Well, it's great that you're able to spread the really delicious vegan protein powder to more and more people. So that back to your book, and let's talk to your documentary. Both of them have been called um, vehicles that send a message about bucking the system that keeps us fat, sick, and tired. Can you talk a little bit about this system that keeps us fat, sick, and tired? Because I think a lot of us aren't aware about how we're being taken advantage of. But they're trying to kill us. Your documentary is very clear about that.
Yeah, I think because we've just been raised that our government would never do anything wrong to us, and we've been raised that there's no way that there would be a food on the market that could potentially be hazardous because the government wouldn't allow that. But then when you go start to look at it, you're like, oh, wait a minute, how is it that these products that have directly been related to so many diseases and ailments, how is it that it's still available to be on the marketplace? And then you come to find out, if you do more investigation, for instance, there was a part of the film, not to give the whole film away, but a part of the film where we found that there are insurance companies that actually are invested into fast food companies. So they have I want to say like 300 million invested into fast food companies. So what happens is, and this is all fact, we fact checked everything. So the funny part is you pay for your insurance, you pay for the fast food. So the insurance company gets paid when you buy the fast food as well. And then when you get sick of the fast food, the insurance company can now charge you a higher premium because you bought the food that they helped fund in the first place. And it's a complete cycle, and this is all legal, and nobody's shutting it down. It's just like that's the way it is, and that's just one example.
Wow. Yeah. And your documentary, it's produced with Chris Paul, the amazing basketball player, Billie Eilish, the singer, and
Yeah.
you are a producer and a co-director with is it
Yes,
Keenan from
Keegan,
Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy?
yes, Keegan Coon. He's my co-director for the film, and we've got some other stuff in the pipeline as well. We work very well together, so we've got some things that we're working on, and we're still working on distribution of this film, but we got some other things in the pipeline as well.
Good, because you're all super talented and have a lot to say. So I'm glad you've teamed up. Your film, does it focus um, more specifically on the African American community, or is it about Americans as a whole? Because when I looked on your website, it's they're trying to kill us.com. I saw a lot of amazing
Mhm.
stats. You're right. You did back up a lot your contentions in the film with powerful evidence. And it seemed like it was focused a lot on how the United States government and the food system has hurt the African American community.
Yes, it focuses on the African American community as well as the brown community as well. But what I always try to make sure I reiterate is that it's not like white people are in the clear. A lot of white people, unless you're part of the 1%, you're collateral damage. Because if you look at all the marketing of the food, how do they market it? They market it to the African American community. They want to make sure that it's got hip hop involved, it's got athletes involved. And the majority of the athletes that they use are African American. The majority of the musicians that they use, African American. In fact, if you look at Popeyes, they have the spokesperson Annie that acts like she's the CEO. But if you go look, and you can Google this right now, it's a white woman that is actually the owner of Popeyes. So there's things that they do to make it seem more hip and more cool and more family oriented. But then if you look at it in the long run, it has nothing to do with that. It's all about profit. And like I said, we're targeting the African American community because that's who they're targeting. But at the end of the day, they're after all of us because the dollar bill that they put in the bank account, it doesn't say who spent it. It doesn't say if they were white, black, Hispanic, gay, straight, trans. They don't care. At the end of the day, they just want the money, and they don't care who it hurts to get it.
You also talk about in your film that almost 50% of African Americans have some kind of cardiovascular disease, and Black Americans are more likely to die from stroke, stomach cancer, prostate cancer, heart disease than whites. Tell us a little bit about,
Yes.
you've touched on it, but go deeper into why is this? Because it's got to be an environmental thing, right? And a
Right.
systemic thing.
Exactly. It's environmental, but the environment is created by the system so that it's all tied in together. If you think about it, the reason why it is, and we don't even call them food deserts anymore. We call them nutrition deserts because there's food in these areas. It's just there's no nutrition in these areas. So the food that they're getting is not the most nutritious. I mean, you can find a bodega somewhere, you can find a corner store, you can find a liquor store with snacks in it. So there's food there, but there's no nutrition there. And that's where we're having all these problems because the options aren't available. And the problem is if somebody was to try to put a one-up health store, it would be outmarketed by the billions in advertising that these other corporations are doing. And, just because McDonald's sells a salad doesn't mean they're out looking for health. You get that a lot. I mean, if Krispy Kremes came out with a smoothie, it still wouldn't negate all the bad that it's doing every day. So that's why you have these people with these underlying ailments, is because what they have available to them is literally going to cause that. It's been scientifically proven. It doesn't even have to be a vegan agenda or a keto agenda or whatever it is. You can literally look at the scientific facts. If you keep eating these certain foods, you're going to have these certain ailments and diseases. And what's predominantly in these areas are those types of foods. So they kind of have no choice. So we have to basically not wait on the system to change, because if we look at it on a bigger scale, it took 400 years for them to realize, you know what, maybe the slavery thing is not cool, and maybe this oppression thing is not cool. So then it's going to take them another 400 years to actually change the system. So we can't wait on the system. And I think I used to get a lot of comments about people like, oh, here we go, we're playing the victim. And I'm like, no, if you actually watch the film, I'm telling you that we can't play the victim anymore, but we can't wait on them to change it. It's like you can't wait on your abuser to be the one to heal you as well. That's never going to happen. So that's why we're giving people the actual options like, hey, look, I want to show you the problem, but I also, when Keegan and I started this film, the biggest thing I told him was like, we have to be goal oriented. We can't just show people the problem. We also got to show them the solution too. Because you see a lot of documentaries, they do that. They'll show you how horrible the world is, and then they'll go, okay, we'll see you on the next one when we start part 2. Like, well, what do I do now? Like, I'm paranoid, I'm anxious. Like, what do I do until part 2? It's like, no, I want people to see how messed up it is. But guess what? We also have power to change it as an individual and as a collective.
So you offer solutions in your documentary.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
One of the things that you discovered while shooting the film is that the most gun shops in America are in poor neighborhoods, and the fewest grocery stores are in poor neighborhoods. So we're setting up a terrible paradigm.
And another stat that a lot of people don't know, there's actually more gun shops in America than grocery stores. Now that's crazy.
Well, the reason I don't know is because I live, being a middle-class white American, I live in a place where there's a lot of grocery stores and not a lot of gun shops. So that's why it would surprise me. But in other areas, it might not surprise people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, until, I really started researching for this film. It was like, wow, like now I see it was in front of me all the time growing up, but I never like really paid attention to it. I'm like, you're right. There was a pawn shop here that had guns in it. There was a gun shop over here. There was a liquor store right here. The grocery store was miles away. It was easier to get to these other stores than it was to get to the grocery store. And it's just interesting.
It's powerful. You have a segment in your film that talks about factory farms, and you touched on the fact that when we become vegan, we help people too. And one of the things that you talk about is in North Carolina, there are 10 million pigs in that state. And that, I don't know if that's not more than the humans in that state, right? But that's a lot of pigs.
Yes, there's more pigs in the state of North Carolina than there are humans.
Oh, really? Okay. Jeez. Yes. So tell me how the Black community or the poor community or the brown community is disproportionately affected by actual raising of hogs, by these actual factory farms, not by the meat they produce, but by the farms existing in their neighborhoods.
Yeah. So one of the major things that people overlook, because I grew up in the South, in Midwest and all this, and I never put this together either. But these hog farms are predominantly around lower class income. So what happens is, for instance, these pigs never see daylight. So basically they're inside of these hog farms, these tents that never touch grass. So you can be grass fed all you want, and a lot of these things never even see the grass. They're just fed a certain way. But what happens is, if you have a hog farm that gets the hogs at a 5-week-old piglet, and then they give it away to the slaughterhouse at 25 weeks old, That's 20 weeks of pig manure that's being manifested by at this one hog farm. One hog farm has 7,500 pigs at one time. 7,500 pigs for 20 weeks. I don't want to curse on here, but you know what I'm going to say. That's a lot of pig stuff. So what happens with this pig stuff? They have these lagoons where they hold the pig manure in it. And one thing that baffled me, this hog farm had 3 of these lagoons. One lagoon held it. I won't even say the number. I want people to see it on the movie. But let's just go in the terms of gallons. Let's just say it's over thousands of gallons of manure at a time. And who's buying hog manure? No one. So they have what they call spray fields. And these spray fields, they spray the manure over these fields. They're not necessarily always crops. They're just spraying the manure so they can get rid of it. And what happens is it gets into the air. All it takes is one breeze to blow it, and now it's, in the water system. It's in these people's houses. We had John Hopkins ran a test on people's homes around the area, and they swabbed the kitchen tables and the walls and the toys and the floor, and they all came back with hog waste. So these people are ingesting this hog waste. They're breathing this hog waste. They're living in that. Like, we interview people that live in this area, and they're telling you, like, you can't even enjoy dinner because you taste hog waste. It's in your nasal cavities. It's in your tongue palate. So imagine that. So when people are like, oh, but bacon, I love bacon. It's like, okay, so that's where I say this is a civil rights act as well, because just because your taste buds want that bacon, you're supporting an industry that's doing this.
Yeah, it's huge. And if that would never happen in a wealthier, more powerful community. They take advantage of people who have less power in the
That's right.
in the yeah. So thank you for that. Can you give us one solution? I don't want to give everything away in your documentary because we'll all want to actually see it. And by the way, at theyretryingtokillus.com, you can see the very excellent trailer. The very really makes you want to see the whole film. But can you give us one solution, just so we don't fall into that trap that you were talking about just talking about the problem and then leaving people like,
right. I think one solution that is actually a major solution, but the most simplistic solution, is to focus on self. I think a lot of times we're so big on looking at the biggest picture. We want to look at how do we change the world right now. It's like the world is going to change if each person focuses on being the best version of themselves for this planet. So I think if you focus on yourself, focus on what you're eating, focus on what you're drinking, focus on your mental attitude, focus on, are you putting out positive energy? A lot of times we think we're the most positive person, and we can go back in time and look at what we've been doing over the last 5 years, and we're like, man, I really did curse that person out, and all they did was just say hello. Like, there's certain things, there's so many things that we can change. What you eat is the biggest form of middle finger that you can give to the system. And I talk about that in the book as well. It's like the biggest middle finger you can give is to be the healthiest, happiest version of yourself, because the system is not created to make you the happiest, healthiest version of yourself. So if more people start to focus on that and they start to improve their health and their mental health as well, because one thing I talk about in the film is that the biggest thing that we forget is that what we eat feeds our organs. We know that what we eat, it goes to the heart. We know that it goes to our liver. We know that it goes, it can affect our lungs. But one organ that we always forget, besides the skin being the largest, is our brain. Our brain is an organ. So if you are eating wrong, how can you mentally be your full capacity if you're putting the wrong fuel into this machine that's a body? If you start putting the right fuel in there, that mental clarity will clear up. And then the rest of your health will start to clear up too, because you start to see, wow, I'm doing the wrong thing for this machine. And you really start to see the bigger picture after that.
That's empowering. So if you believe in the power of one to actually change the system, that if enough of us do that,
Yeah.
then change can happen. I do too.
Yes, because not only that, I don't think you have to talk about it after that because people see the proof. Like and so this is kind of funny, but I learned this once I went to London one time, and I actually mentioned like proof is in the pudding, and somebody was like, it's not pudding, it's just Americans butcher the English language. That's what we do. So it's actually the proof is in the put in. It's what and it makes way more sense. It makes way like it was like mind blowing when he said. I was like, oh shoot, that actually makes sense. The proof is in the put in. It's what the work you put in will show proof. So if you are that person that's being vegan and you're putting all your energy and your efforts into being a better person, you don't have to say a word because the proof is in the put in. The results are going to show.
It's great. Yeah, nothing really ever came good of that proof that's in the pudding. We don't need pudding. We need put in. So tell our audience where and when they can get the book.
The book is available March 14th. It'll be shipped out, but you can pre-order it right now through Amazon. I believe Barnes & Noble has it as well, and a lot of major sites as well. I believe Target may have it as well coming up. But you can pre-order it. Link is in my bio. If you can't get it, I'm sure you all might have the link as well. But March 14th, they should be shipping out to doors on that day.
Excellent. Yeah, folks. And just pre-ordering can be very important for the success of a book because all those pre-orders get added up to the first week of sales, which can help a lot in the future. So pre-ordering that's one thing you can do good for the world right now is pre-order John Lewis's book, Badass Vegan. And where can people find you, John? We'll put this in the notes, the show notes also.
To be honest, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter. I even got a Pinterest page, TikTok, Facebook. But I actually will be traveling a lot this year. I've teamed up with Vegan Street Fair, and they're doing 9 locations this year, and I'll be hosting all 9 locations. I'll be speaking in Toronto this year, Miami. I think I have like 20 events already in the year. And, it's only 52 weeks of the year, so it's going to be a busy year.
Fantastic. So tell us about Vegan Street Fair. What is that?
Vegan Street Fair is an event that Jessica Cruz, a good friend of mine, she started it. And the one thing I love about this fair, not to knock any other fair, I love all vegan fairs because I think they all got different messages. But one thing I love about it is that to attend, it's free. So she averages like 30,000 people per event because you can come. There's hundreds of vendors there, and it's just a great time no matter what. And I'm a very loud person, so with me hosting, it's all about having a good time, definitely.
That's great. So, folks, you can read what he writes, you can see what he's produced in his documentary, and you can go visit him in person at the Vegan Street Fair all around the United States in 2023, right?
That's correct.
Thank you so much for being on the Switch4Good podcast, John. It's great that you came back.
Thank you for having me. And whenever you need me, you just let me know.
Hey, folks. Okay. Back by very popular demand is our plant-powered plate fridge magnet, which you are going to receive for free if you leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. So here are the details. Just write your quick review. Does not need to be long, does not need to be a whole story. Just be honest and speak from the heart. Then take a quick screenshot of the review you wrote and email it to us at podcast@switch4good.org. That's podcast@switch4good.org. And include your mailing address so we can send you a power plate. We are doing this because the more reviews we garner, the higher we go in search results, which means more folks will learn about our podcast. So the power is in your hands. Leave us a review and zoom, your power plate arrives at your doorstep.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the Switch for Good, please visit us at switch4good.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to Switch for Good. This is the future.